The story begins as we see a boy named Takuto, who plays a strategy game while in the hospital, but he suddenly passes away. As he opens his eyes, he finds himself sitting on a throne in a strange world, and a girl suddenly appears, calling him the king. He recognizes her as an important character from his favorite video game named Ada, and he wonders if he should act the part since she's calling him the king. But she tells him it's okay, and calls him a legendary player who cleared the nightmare difficulty while using the civilization called Minogra, which is said to be the most difficult to handle. She remembers everything he did while playing the game, and he mentions that he liked using her because he wanted to be as strong as her, telling her he's happy that he can talk to her. He wonders if he's in heaven, and he asks her if she summoned him there, but she explains that she also doesn't know how she got there. She grabs his hand and tells him they should work together to form a kingdom for themselves, just like they've done countless times in the game. He's confused by what's happening, but he feels calm since he's with her, and he decides to build a civilization with her. She notes that her body is for him to command, but they're both embarrassed. He mentions how the Minogra is known as the most evil civilization, but they specialize in domestic affairs. So the first thing they should do is shut themselves off from the rest of the world, because it's the same strategy they used while playing the game. He summons a monster and orders it to check the surrounding area, while Ada tells it to make sure it completes its mission. The monster starts running around the area, and Takuto notices that he can share its vision, just like in the game. He mentions how it took him 100 mana points to summon the monster, and he'll need 20 more to make their first base, which will leave him with 80 points. He wishes he could create a warrior, but he doesn't have enough mana points, and Ada notes that she'll fight anyone who comes their way. But he reminds her that she can't fight yet, because she starts out weak in the game, and eventually becomes stronger. He knows they're in a risky position, because their civilization will be destroyed if a powerful enemy attacks them, so they need to be careful. He looks through the monster's eyes, and sees that they're surrounded by a forest, which Ada thinks is good for them, since it's easier to hide in it. He mentions that there are no animals there, which she finds confusing, because forests are supposed to be filled with animals, and he wonders how they'll get food. He suddenly notices a civilization of dark elves, which worries him, because they must avoid a fight with them at all costs. She suggests running away, but he plans to continue observing them while he scouts the area, telling her he'll follow her advice if something goes wrong. Meanwhile, a warrior named G is leading a group of dark elves through the forest, and they think they should leave, but he reminds them that they have nowhere else to go. One of them mentions that something evil is buried in the forest, and it stops any life from flourishing, but G thinks it isn't true, since the trees are all green. He tells them not to give up, because they'll get through the suffering, but they're shocked as they run into Takuto and Ada. G thinks Takuto is the manifestation of evil, but he knows that his actions will decide the fate of his tribe, so he bows before them and apologizes for trespassing into their territory. Ada asks them what they're doing there, but she's annoyed when he starts explaining everything, and she tells him to keep his story short, so he notes that they've been driven off their lands. He notes that they've run out of food, and they decided to hide in the forest because they needed to throw off their pursuers. He wonders why they've been forced to suffer so much, even though they did nothing wrong, and their only wish is to live peacefully. Takuto gives them apples, which confuses G, because he doesn't know what they are. He wonders if he should test one of them, but before he can do anything, everyone else takes a bite, and they find the apples delicious. Takuto continues to give them fruits, but Ada notices that G isn't eating, and he suddenly bows before Takuto, asking for his permission to take the fruits back to their camp. He mentions that they have children who haven't eaten for days, and he wants to feed them before he eats, so Takuto summons a pile of fruits and vegetable for them. Everyone's shocked by his kindness, and G asks him who he is, but he just tells G to take everything with him. He thinks about how the dark elves were forced to live in the shadows, and he's surprised that Takuto is helping them, because no one has ever done something nice for them. G returns to his people and gives them the food, and they wonder where he found it, but he tells them he just saw it lying around. At night, the elf leader named Malta tells G that the food was incredible, and he notes that he's lived a long life, but he's never seen anything like it. He wonders what really happened, so G tells him about his meeting with Takuto, and Malta tells him about the legend written in their books. According to the legend, the King of Ruin will appear when the world reaches saturation, and he'll destroy everything so that they can start over from scratch. G explains that he doesn't know if Takuto is the King of Ruin, and notes that he's a being beyond their understanding, but he did have a woman serving him. G mentions how Takuto didn't ask for anything in return for his help, which confuses Malta because he thinks Takuto is an evil being. G calls Takuto his Grace, which makes Malta angry because it's a title they use to show respect. But G notes that Takuto is the reason why they have the energy to argue with each other, so he deserves their respect. Malta praises G for his work, but notes that he plans to negotiate with Takuto since he's the leader of the Dark Elves. Meanwhile, Ada yells at Takuto for using his mana to give the Dark Elves food, but he mentions that he felt bad for them. He apologizes for his actions and promises to do whatever she wants to make amends, telling her he needs her. She's happy hearing this, and he notes that he can speak freely in front of her, but he couldn't get words out of his mouth in front of the Dark Elves because he isn't used to talking to strangers. Malta and G prepare to meet Takuto, and Malta is worried about how he'll react because he might demand something in return for his charity. G mentions that he didn't ask for anything, but Malta thinks he helped them so that he can demand something from them in the future. But they know that they can't survive without his power because they'll go back to being wanderers if they leave the forest, and they'll struggle to find their next meal. Takuto's monster overhears their conversation, so it goes back and warns him that the Dark Elves are coming, and Ada thinks they must be returning to get the food they left behind. He wishes they would just take it and go back, because he knows he can't negotiate with them due to his poor communication skills. She offers to take care of it on his behalf, telling him it will strengthen his position as the king, so he decides to leave it to her. Malta and G arrive, and they thank Takuto for helping them, so Ada is glad that they know how to show respect. They ask for Takuto's name, so Ada introduces him as the ruler of Ruin, and tells them to take their food and leave. But they ask her if there's anything they can do for him, because they want to thank him for all he's done for them. She notes that it won't be necessary, since they can't prepare an offering that will satisfy him, and she doesn't trust Malta, thinking he must be planning something. But he assures her that he has no bad intentions, and Takuto sees that the situation is getting tense, so he whispers something in her ear, but she thinks it's a bad idea. She explains that Malta and G are terrible negotiators, and thinks they should be eliminated, because they'll get in his way if he lets them go. He believes that they're looking for a mutually beneficial relationship, and suggests giving them a price for his help, since he thinks it would reassure them. So she tells them he has agreed to accept their offering in exchange for his charity, which calms them down. Takuto wonders if they were thinking there would be a catch for his help, because he's considered an evil being, but Ada can't decide what she should ask from them. So he notes that he wants to know about the outside world, and Malta agrees to tell him everything he knows, but she tells them to leave the forest once their pact is fulfilled. They ask for permission to keep living there, but she refuses, and warns them that if they tell anyone about what they saw, she won't show mercy to their people. She is against her decision, but Malta tells him to stay quiet, because they need to do whatever Takuto says. They prepare to leave, but Takuto wonders if he's doing the right thing, because they won't be able to survive if he lets them go, so he asks them if they want to become his citizens. Ada is confused by his decision, so he explains how the Dark Elves are neutral beings, but if they become citizens of Minogra, they'll become evil beings. But she notes that Minogra's main citizens are the homunculi, and if the Dark Elves start living with them, they might begin clashing with each other. But he reminds her how the homunculi look, and asks her if she can handle life if they're the only citizens. She realizes that she can't, because looking at them will worsen her mental health, so she tells Malta and G that Takuto wants them to become a part of his nation. Malta wonders what will happen if they agree to become his citizens, so she reveals that they'll become evil beings, but she tells them it's more fun than they would expect. After that, Takuto walks through the forest, as Ada mentions how the Dark Elves took a long time to make up their minds, but he thinks anyone would think it over if they were told they would become evil. They arrive at the Dark Elves' camp, where everyone bows before Takuto, and one of them passes out just by looking at him. He sits at the throne, where he officially announces the founding of Minogra, and Ada notes that he'll guarantee everyone's happiness and safety. She wonders why he feels normal, because Ada told him they would become evil, but everyone suddenly starts feeling rage in their hearts as they remember the people who hurt them. Takuto asks them if they're okay, which makes them cry, because no one has ever cared for them. After that, as Takuto looks at the map of the continent, he's shocked to see that there are already two nations there. One of them is the Holy Kingdom of Qualia, which consists of humans who worship the holy god Arlos, while the other is the nation of elves who worship nature. Takuto and Ada are scared, knowing they'll be destroyed if they're discovered by the nations, because they don't have the military strength to fight back. Ada adds that they don't have natural resources, but Takuto mentions how they usually have a problem with research, because the homunculi aren't smart, but the dark elves will help them cover that weakness. Malta and G arrive with a girl named Emil, and G notes that she's an intelligent woman who knows a lot about other nations. Ada tells them they'll handle the important administration positions of Minogra, and explains that the decision was made by Takuto, so it can't be overturned. Malta is given the job to handle the nation's affairs, while G is assigned as their head warrior, so he mentions that he'll eliminate everyone and display their corpses, which Takuto finds scary. G is confused by his reaction, so he notes that he prefers peace, but G can't understand why the King of Ruin is a pacifist. Ada tells them to rest for a while, and notes that they'll start to build houses after they've recovered. Malta mentions that his intelligence will help in that task, unlike G who only has strength, which makes him angry. He notes that he doesn't need any rest, and Emil is also eager to work, so Ada asks Takuto if they should have them gather resources. He mentions that he wants to strengthen the terrain, so she asks them if they can gather lumber while keeping the forest intact, and Malta tells her to lead it to him. Takuto mentions that they should reforest after they're done, but they have no idea what he's talking about, so Ada asks them if they have heard of military magic or the 6 great elements. But Malta mentions that he's only heard of the 4 great elements, so Takuto realizes that the magic technology of the world is quite far behind. Ada thinks they can get ahead of the other nations by developing it, and she explains that reforestation is the act of planting trees after they have harvested lumber. She notes that it's done to maintain the environment, but they're confused because it takes hundreds of years for the trees to grow back. So she explains that they'll use the 6 great elements to make them grow faster, and claims that the technique was developed by Takuto. Emil wonders if he's the one who created the apples, so Ada tells her it's true, and notes that the grapes are her favorite. Emil reveals that she planted the seeds from the grapes, and they're already sprouting, which shocks them, as Takuto realizes that he created the fruits even though they didn't exist in this world. So he makes a coin, and he realizes that he can create anything he wants, thinking it's an overpowered skill, even though it consumes a large amount of mana. Meanwhile, we see a girl named Lena, as she plays piano in a castle, and she can sense that the apocalypse is about to come from the accursed lands. The cardinal calls her, and tells her that barbarians have appeared in the northern province, so she immediately goes with him to take care of it. As they're on their way, one of the soldiers mentions how there are rumors that Lena has special powers, but he hasn't seen anything yet. Another soldier tells him to wait, because all his doubts are about to be cleared, and they run into the barbarians. So Lena uses her staff to burn them to a crisp, but the area she hits with her flames turns into flowers. The soldiers note that the only reason they have a good relation with the nation of elves is because of her powers, and we learn that she's one of the continent's 7 great saints. After that, Lena tells the cardinal that they should send paladins to investigate the accursed lands, but he doesn't think they can get permission for it, so she decides to go there herself. But he reminds her that she can't do whatever she likes, because she isn't a simple village girl anymore, and he assures her that he'll send his personal men to investigate the matter. Meanwhile, the Dark Elves start constructing buildings, and they quickly make a throne and a council room for Takuto. Malta and the others arrive, and before the meeting begins, they give Takuto new clothes, which makes him happy, because he can finally get out of his pajamas. As the meeting starts, Malta asks Ada what they should start building, and she tells them to make a food production center, because they can't wage war on an empty stomach. He wonders if Takuto can't make an infinite amount of food with his power, but she explains that he can't do that forever, and there will be an issue of distribution when they expand their territory. She shows them a flesh tree, and notes that it produces human flesh, but Malta mentions that most people don't think it's right to eat it, so she tells him they'll only plant the trees to get them started. She notes that they also need a building to store the food, so Emil decides to take responsibility for it, but she's creeped out by the talking tree. The next thing they need to do is research magic technology, and Ada tells them they'll research military spells, revealing that normal magic can only attack a dozen people at once. But military magic can be used to attack entire armies, and it can also change terrains to give them a strategic advantage, which excites both Takuto and Malta. The last thing on their agenda is military planning, and G thinks they need to organize an army first, but Takuto tells him that for the time being, they won't be putting too much effort into it. G is disappointed hearing this, and Ada explains that it costs resources to maintain an army, but he thinks their soldiers aren't strong enough to protect Takuto. Malta reveals that he and G have bounties on their heads because they're the leaders of the Dark Elves, and Takuto realizes that they're worried about their pursuers, so he decides to make a hero. But they have no idea what that is, so Ada explains that there are plenty of heroes that work under Takuto, and they're all insane monsters, but they have special abilities that make them useful. She knows that they need to fulfill several conditions to summon one of them, but she thinks they'll be able to do it in the near future. Takuto reveals that they've been gathering mana from their citizens, so their national mana reserve is building up nicely. But he notes that the amount they collect depends on everyone's happiness, so he plans to make them as happy as possible. Meanwhile, a paladin named Lonius is praying to God when another paladin, Verdel, interrupts him and tells him they don't have time to waste. He sees that Lonius is wearing his wedding ring as a protection charm, so he warns him that he'll make fun of him if he starts saying his wife and daughter's names in his sleep. He thinks about how Verdel is rumored to be ill-mannered, but his skills are the real deal, and he wonders why they're being sent to the Dark Continent. So Lonius tells him it's because of the revelation Lena received, and he knows that they'll be highly regarded if they succeed, but everyone will blame him if they fail, because he's the junior. Verdel wonders why only the two of them are being sent to investigate, so Lonius tells him that it's rare to send a party outside the national borders, and there's no standard for the number of people that will be deployed. They meet up with the mercenaries they hired for the mission, and Lonius thinks about Verdel, knowing he's still a high paladin despite his attitude, so his presence will increase their chances of survival. Meanwhile, Emil shows Takuto and Ada how much progress they've made, and he realizes that she's extremely capable. She tells him they've been working hard to repay him for everything he's done for them, and he tells her she's incredible, but she suddenly breaks down in tears. After she calms down, she keeps showing Takuto their work, and he's glad that she's recovered, because he's never had a girl cry on him. She tells them how the flesh trees are almost ready to be harvested, thanks to the equipment he provided, but she freaks out as she hears one of the trees talking. Emil takes them to the water source they found, but she's shocked to see that it has turned black, and Malta and she think it isn't safe to drink. But Ada drinks it without hesitation, telling them it's safe to drink, and she explains that it's normal for their water to turn black, because the lands they conquer become cursed terrain. Takuto tells them to take a deep breath, which makes them feel like they're getting stronger, and he reveals that the cursed terrain provides benefits to evil beings, but it gives penalties to good or neutral people. The only problem is that it will be easier for the enemies to find them once it covers a large area, and G once again proposes that they should form an army. But Ada assures them that their hero will be enough to deal with the enemies, and they still have no idea what she's talking about, so she decides to show them her powers. Tentacles suddenly come out of her body, and they easily destroy the trees behind her, as she reveals that she's also a hero. Takuto explains that heroes don't need any resources, and they keep getting stronger as time passes, even if they don't do anything. They're impressed by how powerful Takuto is, so they want to make a palace for him, and he doesn't think it's necessary. But they refuse to let him live in the same house as them, because it will make them feel guilty. Ada tells him a palace costs a fortune to build, but it will create resources they can use, and it will also increase the citizens' happiness, so he agrees to build it. He wants to make a floating castle, which is a city that flies through the sky, and Malta mentions that he can't imagine it, but Emil thinks it must be possible to make it with Takuto's help. Meanwhile, Lonius and Verdel defeat a group of monsters, which makes the mercenaries think they don't need to fight, but Verdel tells them it's just the beginning of their journey. As they continue moving forward, Verdel praises Lonius for recruiting a large group of mercenaries, and Lonius thinks he got lucky, because most of the mercenaries are in the north. Verdel knows that they went there to deal with the barbarians, who are raiding the villages, and Lonius mentions that Lena and the army are already there, but the barbarians are still causing trouble. A mercenary named Bargo doesn't seem to care about the situation, but Lonius tells him to stop pretending that it doesn't concern him. Bargo thinks the situation isn't related to them at all, and Verdel asks him why he isn't going there, since he can earn a lot of money. But he notes that he won't accept it no matter how well the job pays, because he heard there's a witch in the north. Verdel tells everyone to stop worrying about it, telling them to have their guards up since they're going south, and they have no idea what they'll find there. At night, as they stop at a restaurant, Lonius asks Bargo about the witch, and he tells Lonius about the rumors that everything happening in the north was caused by a witch. But Lonius refuses to believe that a single person can cause so much commotion, and Verdel tells them to stop talking about it. He orders another drink, and Bargo thinks he's drinking too much, but Verdel notes that according to the Holy Book, they're allowed to let loose and relax when there's no work. But Lonius mentions the clause he's referring to, and notes that he misunderstood it, because it doesn't give them permission to drink, but Verdel thinks they just have a different interpretation of it. Bargo wonders why two holy soldiers are going out of their way to investigate the accursed lands, and he asks them if it's related to the witch. Verdel thinks their mission is related to the Dark Elves, and Bargo knows that if they're left alone, they might get stronger and attack them. Verdel mentions that they should escape if the situation becomes dangerous, but Lonius thinks they should risk their lives to eliminate the Dark Elves. So Verdel advises him to be patient, telling him they all have families, so they shouldn't act recklessly, and he tells everyone to drink up to lighten the mood. Meanwhile, Takuto gathers all the Dark Elves, and he uses his powers to turn the flesh tree's fruit into a long-legged bug. They're shocked that he can create new life, and Ada tells them that their happiness will give him even more powers, so they need to show even more devotion towards him. After that, Takuto is relieved that everything went well, and Ada is happy that he's able to use normal production, but she's surprised by how easy it was. She notes that he can safely produce new units, so he thinks he should summon a hero next, and he plans to make the Queen of Bugs named Isla first. He notes that she can strengthen the other insects, so she'll turn the long-legged bugs into formidable warriors, and she can also produce larvae, which will increase their workforce. Ada agrees with his decision, and he thinks Isla is his only choice, because the other heroes have a bad attitude, which they don't need at the moment, since they're focusing on domestic affairs. But he still wants to summon them in the future, and he hopes they won't cause any trouble, because his goal is to live peacefully. We see Verdel and the others being attacked by a giant, but Verdel tells everyone to stay back, while he takes care of it alone. His sword starts to glow as he prepares to attack, so Bargo realizes that he's using a holy sword art, and Lonius reveals that it's Qualia's secret technique. The giant attacks Verdel, who breaks its weapon in half and cuts it down, and Lonius thinks they can easily fulfill their mission thanks to Verdel's powers, but he isn't so sure about it. Meanwhile, as Takuto is about to eat a burger, Ada advises him to eat healthier, but he's sick of eating healthy food, because it was all he ate in his previous life. He's more worried about her, because she's only been eating salads since she came there, but she notes that it's the only thing she likes. He tells her to summon Malta and the others after eating, because he wants to ask them what he should do with the areas surrounding the forest. She realizes that he's talking about the nearby city, and she mentions that it's a neutral area, which makes him relieved, because he can't negotiate with them if their alignment is good. She's worried that anyone who comes to the forest could cause trouble, and he tells her not to worry all the time, but he's shocked when he senses a group of armed men approaching. He doesn't want to be discovered, so he tells her to make sure they go back peacefully, but she can eliminate them if it isn't possible. We see Verdel and the others preparing to enter the forest, but Ada appears in front of them, and we see that she's hiding her face. He asks her who she is, so she tells him she's a dark elf who has been living in the forest after she ran away. She asks him what they're doing there, but he refuses to say anything, telling her to answer his questions first. She notes that all the dark elves are scared, because of all the suffering they went through, so she asks him to show mercy. He tells her his group is on a mission to investigate the forest, and they can't go back without achieving anything, but she advises them not to enter the forest. Lonius tries to tell her that they're holy soldiers, but Verdel yells at him to shut up because he's talking to her. Verdel notes that they've received a divine revelation about a calamity in the forest, which shocks everyone, because he just revealed a national secret. Lonius notes that he'll report Verdel to the higher-ups after they return, but he doesn't care, and he asks her to let them look around a bit. But she still refuses to let them enter, and Lonius can't believe she's refusing to do what they're saying, even after knowing they're acting on a revelation, which is a message from God. He also senses evil energy from Ada, which makes him realize the revelation was correct, so they need to search the forest. Ada assures them that there's no calamity in the forest, and she swears on her god that she's telling the truth, so Verdel decides to retreat, which shocks Lonius. Verdel is about to leave, but Lonius strips him of his authority, saying he can't trust a man who will abandon his mission, and he decides to take command. He tells the mercenaries to enter the forest, and Verdel tries to stop them, but Bargo notes that Lonius is the one who hired them, so they need to listen to him. Ada tries to reason with them, but he orders his men to capture her, and she realizes that she doesn't have a choice, so she eliminates half of them using her tentacles. Verdel realizes she's a witch, so he tells Bargo to make sure he sends a runner back home, because they need to tell the others about what happened. But Bargo notes that Ada has already eliminated all of their messengers, and Verdel knows that fighting is their only option, so he orders his men to shoot arrows at her. But she blocks all of them with her tentacles, and she's glad that they aren't holding back, telling them it's all Lonius's fault that they need to fight, since he didn't want to leave. Lonius wonders what a witch is, so Verdel explains that it's the monster in the Revelation, and notes that the commotion in the north was also caused by a witch. He tells the mercenaries to fall back, while he and Lonius rush towards her, and they use their divine blessings to cut her tentacles, until she only has 2 left. She grabs the mercenaries with her remaining tentacles, and plans to use them as human shields, so that the paladins won't attack her. Lonius is angry, but Verdel tells him to stay calm, because they only need to cut her tentacles to win the fight. He thinks they should look at the bigger picture, because if they're able to defeat her, they'll stop the calamity that will destroy their nation, which will save countless lives. So they decide to sacrifice the 2 mercenaries, and cut her tentacles along with them. She can't believe they killed her hostages, and Verdel rushes towards her, but she suddenly stabs him with other tentacles. She finishes him off, and Lonius doesn't understand what just happened, so she tells him she can regenerate her tentacles as much as she wants. He realizes that she was just playing with them from the beginning, and he tells everyone to run in different directions, because they need to make sure one of them gets back home to warn everyone about her. He attacks her to buy time for the others, but he's shocked when she uses Verdel's sword to fight back, and she starts pushing him back. She reveals that she inherits the skills and memories of everyone she eliminates, and notes that Verdel was worried about all of them till his last breath, telling Lonius he's the reason why Verdel died. She asks him how he feels about it, but he mentions that Verdel's legacy will live on, and he thinks the mercenaries have escaped, but he suddenly hears them screaming. She reveals that she told the Dark Elves to make sure no one escapes, so he falls into despair, and he attacks her out of desperation, but she easily defeats him. As Ada holds him with her tentacles, she tells him that if he had just done what Verdel told him, he could have returned to his family, but he instead chose to die by her hands. She notes that after she eliminates him, she'll hunt down his family and torture them until they beg her to end their life. After that, she'll take care of all the villages he stopped by on his way, and when they ask her why she's doing such things, she'll tell them it's all because of his stupidity. He begs her to stop, but she finishes him off and tells him to watch from heaven when she destroys everything and everyone he ever loved. After that, G reports to Ada that they've eliminated all the mercenaries, and he asks her if she'll really do everything she said to Lonius, but she mentions that she was just messing around. She tells him to dispose of the corpses, while she returns to Takuto and tells him about how Verdel thought she was a witch. He realizes that they aren't in the world of the game, and she mentions that even though the game's mechanics apply to a certain extent, they should assume that the rest of the world doesn't work in the same way. She thinks there are benefits to it being different, because in the game, she could only steal the abilities of the people she defeated, but in this world, she can also steal their memories. Takuto is glad that she got her new powers, which allowed them to find out that Qualia doesn't have soldiers to spare, since they're dealing with the northern disturbance. She thinks they won't just stay back after seeing that their investigation party was wiped out, but he isn't scared, because they don't have information about Minogra. He's more worried about the witch that has appeared in the north, and he asks Ada if she has any information about her, but the only thing she knows is that everyone calls her Arakeen. Takuto wonders how someone so powerful can appear in an instant, and he wonders if she also transferred to the world just like them. Ada thinks that Arakeen is also evil based on her actions, and she wonders if they should reach out to her, but Takuto doesn't think they'll get along with her. Ada is sad because they have plenty of problems to take care of, but he thinks it's a blessing that everything's happening far away from them, because it gives them time to deal with their issues. He thinks they should summon a hero, and he changes his mind about summoning Isla, because they need someone with high combat power to deal with threats like Arakeen. He thinks about forming an alliance with another nation, because they have made an enemy out of Qualia, and they don't know how Arakeen will react to them. He wants to work with the nation to their east, because they're neutral, so they might accept his proposal. She thinks she ruined his mood by going too far with the paladins, but she realizes that he doesn't care about it, and he assures her that he'll never be offended by her actions. The Dark Elves finish building the palace, and Ada notes that they still have problems, but she thinks they're off to a good start. She tells Takuto about her plans for their future, but she realizes that he doesn't have an attendant, so she asks him what kind of person he wants by his side. So he mentions that he wants someone easy to talk to, because he's socially awkward, and he can't even talk to the Dark Elves. He notes that he wants to be a friendlier king, so she tells him not to worry since she has a plan, but he knows that nothing good happens when she's enthusiastic. Ada summons G and the others, and she orders Malta to gather the younger girls for Takuto, because she thinks they can help him develop his social skills. Malta wonders why she's giving him that order, so she explains that Takuto needs an attendant, and they decided to pick children since they are part of the labor force. But G wonders why they don't want male children, so Takuto explains that he wants to raise female leaders by giving the girls a chance to study for their future. Malta and the others praise him for his way of thinking, but he's glad that his subjects believed him because he just came up with a flimsy excuse. Ada orders them to bring the girls, and Takuto thinks he can finally cure his poor communication skills. But the girls immediately cry as they see him, so he falls into despair, and Ada asks Malta if there are children who can stay by Takuto's side without crying. So Malta tells her about a pair of twin girls, who are wiser than the others, but he didn't bring them there because they have issues. She asks Malta to take them to the palace, because she wants to meet them, and he seems to be against it, but G reveals that he already brought them there. One of the twins greets her, and she introduces herself as Karia, and her sister as Maria. Ada notes that they seem to have a dark history, and she asks Karia about her scars, so she reveals that she got them from a disease. Malta explains that she recovered from the plague, but it left scars on her body, and Ada asks about Maria, so she reveals that she ate her mother. Ada wonders what she means, so Malta reveals that her mother sacrificed herself to save everyone, and Takuto realizes that they ate her since they were about to starve to death. Maria suddenly approaches him, telling him that he looks pale, and she notes that she's willing to take care of him, so he accepts her as his attendant. Ada can't believe he's talking to her, and Karia mentions that she needs to stay with her sister, so she decides to join her as his attendant. After that, Malta tells Takuto that the twins haven't cried since they lost their mother, and he thinks their hearts are closed, so he tells Takuto to be considerate as he watches over them. The twins start working as Takuto's attendant, and Maria is about to give him his drink, but she accidentally spills it on him. He tells her it's okay, and Karia wipes him with his towel, but Ada suddenly joins them, and tells them they need to attend an important meeting. Everyone gathers to talk about their domestic affairs, and Emil reports that they still have plenty of resources for construction, so she thinks they should build a new facility. Takuto tells Ada he wants to proceed with the building they discussed last meeting, so she orders Emil to start building a clinic, as he notes that it will guarantee the health and safety of their citizens. Emil reveals that she's also in charge of their resources, and notes that Takuto gave everyone the items they need for their everyday lives, but she knows that it costs a lot of mana to create them. Ada thinks they should stick to using his powers for now, but notes that they need to increase the production of mana, so she wants to talk about the progress of their research. Malta reveals that they've completed their research on military magic, and he's the only one who can use it for now, but he's training his subordinates so that they can also use it. He thinks casting magic with the ruin mana provided by the palace will be crucial for their future, but he explains that they don't need to use it because of Takuto's policies. Ada agrees with him, but tells him to proceed with the 6 major elements in the magic tree, because it's an important topic to research. G reports that 5 long-legged bugs have been added to their forces, and they're exploring the area, but they can't leave the forest, because they won't be able to stay hidden if they go out in the open. Ada tells him to have the bugs patrol the edge of the forest, and notes that she doesn't need them to defend the nation, reminding him that she was able to defeat the paladins alone. Takuto tells everyone about his plan to summon Isla, and Malta notes that they already have enough lumber and rations at the ritual site, so Takuto thinks mana is all that's left. After their meeting, Takuto praises everyone for their performance, and he leaves with Maria, who suddenly trips and drops his documents. Karia helps her pick them up, but they accidentally tear a document, and Takuto tells them it's okay. Maria asks him if he's a bad person, so he explains that he's evil, but she wonders why he isn't killing them. He becomes confused hearing this, so Karia explains that her sister wants to know why he's showing them mercy, and he tells them it's because they're taking care of him. Maria is angry that he's so nice to them because he's supposed to be evil, but he explains that good people are only allowed to do what's right, and the twins think bad people can only do what's wrong. But he explains that they're allowed to do anything because they're so selfish that they don't care what others think, so they're free to do whatever they feel like doing. He notes that it's okay for him to be kind to the twins, even though he's a bad person, and he knows that they've been messing up on purpose because they want him to kill them. They admit that they want to die, but they can't take their lives since they're afraid of death, and he realizes that they can't forgive themselves for eating their mother. He tells them they're still alive because of their mother's sacrifice, and he asks them what she said to them before she died, so they recall that she wanted them to keep living. They wonder what they should do, because they can't get over what happened, so he tells them to live life as they see fit, so that their mother will be proud of them. He tells them they're free to do whatever they want, so they don't need to hide their emotions, and they both cry as he hugs them. After that, Ada realizes that the girls are asleep, so she tells Takuto they should talk outside, because she has information about the nation to their east. She reveals that it's called Forndon, and it's composed of humans and beastmen, but they have a remote city called Dragonton, which is run by shamans known as staff holders. She notes that there's a dragon vein mine in the city, which is capable of producing mana, so she tells Takuto they should secure it. She adds that Dragonton is in a state of high alert, since barbarians have been attacking them, and they can't get reinforcements from their homeland, because they're too far away. Takuto realizes that they might generate refugees since they're under attack, and he tells Ada they should help them, because it's their chance to increase their population and secure the mine. They decide to send diplomats to Forndon, and they meet a staff holder named Tanaka, who immediately realizes that they're evil. Her men start to panic, so she tells them to calm down, and Ada tells her companions to stand by, while she prepares to demonstrate her powers. But another staff holder named Pepe suddenly greets her and asks for her name, so she decides not to use her powers, but Tanaka isn't happy with the way he's acting. Ada leads them to Takuto, but Pepe keeps on talking, so Tanaka apologizes for his behavior, explaining that he's an idiot. She reveals that she had to leave her men behind, because the miasma is too harsh for them, but she's nervous since she doesn't know what will happen after she meets Takuto. They reach the throne room, where Ada introduces her to Takuto, and she realizes that he looks scary, thinking she's in trouble because of a choice she made in the past. In a flashback, we see Pepe as he takes down a giant, and he tells everyone they're saved, because he has finally arrived. The soldiers praise him, but the giant suddenly gets back up, and it prepares to crush him, so Tanaka uses her nature magic to restrain it, and the soldiers finish it off. She scolds Pepe for being reckless, and he calls her granny, so she hits him and tells him to stop treating her like an old lady, because she's just 240 years old. She mentions that he's the youngest staff holder, and she wants him to act like a leader, so he promises to do his best, but she's worried about his future. She notes that they're about to head to the accursed lands, because the elders ordered them to investigate it, and she thinks they're doomed if the barbarians keep attacking them. We return to the present, as Tanaka recalls that she disobeyed the elders, who told her to leave Pepe behind, and she thinks he's in trouble because of her. But he suddenly greets Takuto, and tells him he wants to be his friend, so she freaks out, telling Takuto to forgive him for being rude. But he accepts Pepe as his friend, and Ada congratulates him for making his first friend, so Tanaka becomes confused. After that, everyone has a feast together, where Karia gives Tanaka a drink, so she tastes it, and she can't believe how delicious it is. Ada notes that their nation has the tastiest drinks in the world, and Pepe also likes the juice they gave him, so he asks for more. He starts talking to everyone, and he tries to impress Malta with his magic, but he doesn't seem to care. Takuto thinks Pepe's social skills are amazing, because he seems to be fitting in with everyone, and Takuto wonders what he should do, because he's never had a friend before. He thinks he should act friendly, so that Tanaka won't think he's hostile, and he invites Pepe to play a game with him. Everyone stares at him, so he becomes conscious, but Pepe agrees to play with him, and he manages to beat Takuto, who notes that it's his first time playing with someone. He invites Pepe to play with him again, and he manages to beat him in a board game, but Pepe mentions that he's having fun, saying he's glad he came to Minogra. He suggests selling the board game to the people in his country, because he thinks they'll enjoy it, and Takuto agrees to his proposal, because he has always wanted to trade with other nations. After that, Ada asks Tanaka why they went to Minogra, so she explains that her country was being attacked by barbarians, and Ada finds it strange, because they usually avoid large cities. Tanaka notes that they've been attacking in hordes, and she decided to go there with Pepe to investigate, but Takuto thinks their nation is in danger because they lack military strength. Tanaka is nervous because she doesn't want him to find out how weak they are, so she explains that the barbarians are acting strange, and they went there to look for the cause. Everyone believes her, but Pepe notes that their country will be destroyed if they don't find a way to deal with the barbarians, and Tanaka is angry that he's spilled the beans. But Ada explains that Minogra won't harm Forgon because they're an evil nation that loves peace, and she notes that they're in danger if Dragonton falls. Takuto mentions that they'll help Forgon because they're friends, and Pepe is happy hearing this, but Tanaka wonders what they want in return, so Ada tells her to give them access to the Dragon Vein mine. She explains that they'll be happy to have joint control over it because they want to have a portion of the mana it produces, but she mentions that they also want to decide which element the mana is converted to. Tanaka notes that it takes advanced technology to convert mana into elements, and she's impressed that Minogra can already do it. She notes that Pepe is a fool, but he's their nation's future, since he'll eventually lead Forgon as a representative of the staff holders. She adds that he's a good judge of character, and she asks him if they should work with Minogra, so he mentions that he wants to be their friend, and they decide to form an alliance with them. Takuto has a meeting with his officials, and Emil notes that they've started trading with Forgon, which is giving them metal goods and supplies in exchange for their toys. Ada notes that their biggest gain is that they now have access to the Dragon Vein mine, and Takuto is glad that Pepe didn't lie to them, because it made their negotiations go smoothly. Karia wonders what kind of country Forgon is, and nobody can answer her question, so Malta mentions that they need to learn about them. Ada thinks they should investigate them, but she notes that Forgon's capital is far away, so it'll take time to look into them. Takuto decides to put it on hold, thinking they should help Dragonton first, but Malta notes that they'll need a formal reason to head to another nation. Takuto thinks they should send people to pay their respects before sending a delegation, and Malta volunteers to go there, but G notes that the other nations would see him as Minogra's official. Malta realizes that everyone in the meeting is too important for a simple show of respect, but he realizes that the twins are a perfect fit for the role, and they promise to do their best. But Takuto thinks it's too dangerous, and Ada decides to go in their place, but Malta reminds her that she can't go because she's the king's most trusted confidant. The twins mention that they want to be useful to Takuto, and they note that they're willing to take the risk, so he allows them to take on the mission. Emil thinks it isn't safe for them to go without bodyguards, but he tells her not to worry, because he already has a plan. After the meeting, Ada is upset since Takuto caved into the twins' demands, and she tells him to abandon her so that he can build his harem. But the twins suddenly call him, and they tell him to speak his mind, so he thanks Ada for everything she has done for him. He suddenly holds her hand, and tells her he wouldn't have made it this far without her, telling her to cheer up because he needs her by his side. He mentions that she's the only one for him, and she becomes flustered hearing this, as she imagines him proposing to her. After that, Takuto takes the twins to the clinic, where he plans to introduce them to their bodyguards, revealing that he created a special unit to look after them. They meet the men who will serve as their bodyguards, and they're all excited to work with the twins, while Takuto mentions that they're perfect for the task. He reveals that they're medics, and they're good at healing and fighting, but Karia can sense that something's wrong with them. Ada tells them their mission is to protect the twins, while they observe the culture and current state of Dragonton, and the medics accept the mission, since they want to behave like normal humans. Takuto decides to give them an early reward for protecting the twins, and he names each of them, thinking they'll perform better now that he has acknowledged them as individuals. They're overjoyed by his reward, and they promise to complete the mission, but Karia isn't excited to work with them, since they appear to be weirdos. We meet the Dragonton Mayor Antic, who's fed up with her job, and she's frustrated that she can't find a good partner. We learn that she heard about Minogra, and she doesn't want to work with them since they're evil, but a girl suddenly enters her office, so she pretends that she's perfectly fine. The girl mentions that there are people who want to meet her, but notes that they don't have an appointment, so Antic tells her to send them away, since she doesn't want to waste her time with them. But the girl reveals that they're emissaries from Minogra, so Antic realizes that she needs to meet them. She welcomes them to her office and introduces herself as the mayor, but she senses the medic's aura and wonders why the staff holders joined forces with them. The twins introduce themselves, and she recognizes them as dark elves, but she wonders what kind of people they are, since they're from an evil nation. She acts nice while she's talking to them, but she finds them suspicious, wondering why they were sent as emissaries. But she recalls that Tanaka already told her about them, so she realizes that they're important since they're Minogure's future leaders. She's worried that there might be a major issue if she mishandles them, and she wonders how she can help them, so the medics explain that they're just there to observe Dragonton. They tell her to consider their meeting as the first step to building a better relationship with their nation, and note that they want to avoid official talks since the twins still lack experience. She's glad that they aren't there to negotiate, and she offers to show them around the city, since she wants to leave a good impression on the twins. She gives them a tour, and we see Takuto watching them as he notes that everything's going well. After the tour, the twins discuss what they saw in the city, and Maria notes that the people are anxious since they're worried about the barbarians. The medics wonder how she read their feelings, so Carrie explains that she's sensitive to other people's emotions, and the medics think her power is amazing. One of them gives her a pouch, and notes that she asked him to buy it for her, but she reveals that she got it in secret. Carrie recognizes it as popple grass, which is a plant that works like illegal drugs, so it's banned in all nations. The medic tells Maria to throw it away, and Carrie notes that it's in perfect condition, so she thinks it was grown by someone in the city. The medics realize that it's dangerous, since someone's running an illegal business, and they think they should avoid a conflict. But Maria notes that humans love conflict, so they immediately change their minds. The group heads to the Dragon Vein mine, and the twins think it looks amazing, but a man suddenly appears, and notes that he uses the place to grow popple grass. He introduces himself as a merchant named Vesta, and he wants to discuss business with them, since he knows that Minogre will jointly control the mines. He invites them to grow popple grass with him, and promises to split his earnings with Minogre if they accept his proposal, telling them to visit him at night if they want to discuss the details. He thinks they'll understand him, since they're from an evil nation, and he notes that Antic is difficult to deal with, so he hopes that Takuto is willing to work with him. The next day, the twins return to Antic, who's glad that she was able to build a good relationship with them, but Vesta suddenly joins them, so she wonders what he's doing there. He asks the twins to respond to his proposal, and notes that they didn't visit him last night, so he went there to hear their answer in person. Antic is worried that they might accept his offer, but Carrie tells him they'll never work with him, and explains that they didn't show up since they weren't interested. She asks Antic if they can deal with him, so she tells them to go ahead, and notes that his group has been causing chaos in the city, so they need to be punished. He suddenly takes out a syringe, and Carrie realizes that it contains a concentrate of popple grass extract, which will make a person addicted to his product. She warns him that Minogre will become his enemy if he attacks them, but he doesn't care, since he thinks Takuto will do whatever he says after he turns them into addicts. He mentions that Takuto is a pervert, so Carrie becomes angry, and his men charge in, but they're instantly defeated. We cut to Takuto, as he notes that the medics are incredibly useful, but Emma wonders why he sent them as the twins' bodyguards, since he could have sent warriors instead. So Ada explains that they love humans, but killing and healing them is their specialty, and we learn that they're actually brain eaters. We return to Vesta, as he realizes that the brain eaters slaughtered his men, and Antic freaks out as she sees what's happening, but Maria tells her not to be afraid. Vesta thinks the twins will understand him since they're evil, but Carrie notes that they won't forgive him for insulting their king. She mentions that Takuto taught her that evil people are free to do anything, and she orders the brain eaters to finish him off, so they tear him to pieces. They wear his skin, and Maria tells them they look like humans, but Antic is afraid of them, so Carrie apologizes for the mess they made, and offers to compensate her for everything. Antic tells her it's okay, but she wonders why the twins aren't freaking out, and she suddenly wets herself. The brain eaters think about peeing themselves, since they don't want her to bear the shame alone, but Carrie kicks them away, and Antic finds them amusing. The twins return to Takuto, but Ada scolds him for letting them do as they please, since she knows that he could have stopped them from murdering the criminals with his telepathy. She also scolds the brain eaters for skinning Vesta in front of Antic, but they're happy that they got his skin, since it makes them look more human. Takuto thinks they're a bad influence on the twins, but Ada notes that they ordered the brain eaters to kill Vesta, and she tells all of them to reflect on their actions. After that, the officials have a meeting about Dragonton, and they read the twins' report, realizing that the city lacks the resources to maintain order. The report also mentions that goblins, orcs and hill giants have been attacking the city, and they've been appearing in groups, but their numbers are steadily increasing. Malta thinks the defenders are exhausted, since they can't sense the enemies approaching, and G suggests sending reinforcements, because it's only a matter of time until Dragonton falls. Emil agrees with him, but notes that they can't split their forces, since they need people for construction and farming. Ada volunteers to protect Dragonton, and notes that she might be able to steal useful skills from the barbarians, so Takuto thinks it's the perfect chance to improve her strength. Malta decides to go with her, and notes that he'll bring his apprentices with him, since their magic will be useful in combat. G mentions that his warriors will defend the nation, but Emil notes that they've been relying on Ada for national defense, and he admits that she has a point. So Takuto mentions that they'll summon Isla to solve that problem, and everyone's impressed that he made them focus on production, so that they can summon her now that they need her. Ada asks him if he agrees with their strategy, so he mentions that it's perfect, and tells them to keep up the good work. Everyone prepares to summon Isla, and Takuto is glad that they finally have the resources to do it, but he's worried that something might go wrong, since they've never summoned a hero before. Ada promises to protect him if Isla rebels against him, but he tells her not to sacrifice her life, since he can't revive her if he loses her. He begins the summoning ritual, which causes a dark orb to fall from the sky, and it turns into an egg that hatches, and brings forth Isla. She recognizes Takuto as her king, so she introduces herself as the ruler of bugs, and we learn that the insects in the world are stronger now that she has been summoned. He asks her if she still remembers him, so she mentions that she'll never forget him, since he's the only one who was able to draw out her full power. She asks him to explain the situation to her, so he invites her to the palace, where he tells her everything that happened. He mentions that there's still much he doesn't understand, and he's glad that Ada helped him get this far, but she tells him she wouldn't have survived without him. Isla promises to protect the nation as the defense hero, while Ada deals with the barbarians in Dragonton, but she mentions that she'll miss Takuto while she's away. He tells her he'll also miss her, but she's the only one he can ask to handle it, and they're both sad that they'll be separated during her mission. Ada leaves with Malta, while Isla mentions that it's time to get to work, and she promises to do her best so that he can enjoy the game. Isla watches Takuto as he sits on his throne, but she can't believe he's sleeping during the day, and the twins tell her he always sleeps until noon. She reminds him that he's the leader of Minogra, so he needs to get up in the morning to improve his public image, and Carria notes that she's different from Ada, who just lets him do as he pleases. Isla asks him if she can borrow the twins, since she needs them to show her around, so he allows them to go with her. After they leave, Emil asks him to approve the revised assignment of labor, but he isn't used to dealing with people without Ada, so Emil asks him if something's wrong with her proposal. But he mentions that it's completely fine, and tells her to reduce the manpower assigned to gathering, since they've already summoned Isla. He realizes that it's difficult to talk to people alone, but G suddenly approaches him, and tells him to approve the training plan for their warriors. The twins show Isla their main facilities, but they see Emil running around, so Isla asks her if she's okay. She mentions that G broke their training equipment, and notes that he's making it harder for her to get the budget together, telling Isla she's struggling to complete all of her tasks. But she pats her head and tells her to relax, telling her she'll scold G later, and she promises to help Emil with her tasks. We see the warriors training together, but G tells them they aren't working hard enough, and breaks all of their swords. He explains that they can't protect the nation if they're sloppy, but Isla suddenly approaches him, and tells him to recount his stock of equipment. He apologizes for breaking the swords, and explains that he just got heated up over his training, but she tells him he needs to learn to stay cool. The twins tell her it's time to eat, so they take her to the dining area, where the elves give her the dishware they reserved for visiting emissaries. But she decides to eat with the others, since she wants to share the perspective and sentiments of the people. The twins give her the wooden dishware they made for her, and explain that it's just like the plates that everyone uses, so she promises to treasure it until she dies. That evening, Isla looks around the village, and thinks about ways to improve their defenses, but she hears the twins crying. So she asks them what's wrong, and they explain that they can't sleep, since they're having dreams about their mother. They explain that they can't move on, since they still remember how warm and comforting it is to be with her, but they tell Isla not to worry, since it doesn't happen often. But she decides to sleep with them from now on, and promises to always be by their side, and they're happy to rest in her arms. The next day, Isla tells Takuto that they should build a learning institute, and he knows that it's an important building, so he decides to go with her suggestion. He notes that they'll build living reeds after that, so that they can improve their defenses, and he explains that there's no need to rush, since they aren't at war yet. She asks him what's happening to Ada, so he mentions that she's in an interesting situation, and we see that she's about to fight the barbarians. She wipes them out with her tentacles, and Antic freaks out as she watches Ada slaughter the barbarians, but she thanks her for protecting the city. After that, Malta tells Ada that the people aren't afraid of them, since Pepe called her an octopus, and he told her to take care of Dragonton while he returns to a place called Crescent Moon. She's still upset that he called her an octopus, but Malta asks her if she was able to steal any useful abilities, so she tells him about the skills she gained from the barbarians. But they suddenly see a hill giant approaching, and they wonder why they didn't sense its presence, thinking there must be a reason why the barbarians keep appearing out of nowhere. Antic is worried about the giant, but Ada mentions that she'll take care of it, and she rushes to deal with it, while Malta tells Antic not to worry since Ada is a hero. He uses his magic to surround the giant with a dark mist, which causes it to start suffocating, and we learn that the spell buffs evil units, and weakens those that aren't evil. Ada cuts the giant in half, but it suddenly drops coins, so she reports it to Takuto, telling him she showed Malta the coins, but he has never seen them before. Takuto uses his shared perception to check the coin, and he recognizes the crest on it, realizing it's from an RPG game he used to play. An army of barbarians appears, and he sees two generals leading them, so he realizes that they're fighting the Demon Lord's army from another game. We see Lena walking around the ruins of a city, and she tells her soldiers to look for survivors, but they're suddenly taken out. Arikino appears before her, and tells her they haven't met for a long time, while Lena asks her how she's still alive, since she's already been defeated 17 times. She explains that she doesn't know, and notes that Lena is too strong for her, since she always kills her when they fight. She wonders what Arikino is up to, but she refuses to answer her question, and turns the dead people into zombies. She orders them to attack Lena, but she uses her magic to create a pillar of flames, which instantly burns all of them. She charges in and stabs Arikino, killing her in an instant, and she notes that it's the 18th time she has defeated her, but she knows that Arikino will just come back to life. We return to Dragonton, as the people panic when they see the Demon Lord's army, and Takuto tells Ada about the RPG game called Brave Questus. He notes that it's a game where the hero must defeat the Demon Lord to save the world, and reveals that there's no warning for random encounters, which explains why the barbarians seem to just appear. The Demon Lord's General Flamen tells another general named Ice Rock that the Demon Lord has ordered them to attack. Ice Rock is happy that he's allowing them to command the monsters as they please, and thinks they're lucky since the orcs and goblins joined forces with them. He notes that the Demon Lord must take over the world, but wonders what happened to their ambitions for the world they came from. So Flamen tells him it doesn't matter, since their priority is to carry out the Demon Lord's orders, and Ice Rock orders the army to attack. Flamen mentions that he won't join the invasion, and tells Ice Rock to lead the army, so he leaves to join the fight, while Flamen notes that he has other plans. Ice Rock and the monsters approach the gate, but Malta's dark mist surrounds them, and Ice Rock can't believe that his entire army is affected by a spell. He realizes that the orcs and goblins are suffering, but wonders why demons like him are gaining strength, and a mage tells him that it might be the work of the hero. Ada suddenly kills the mage, and she recognizes Ice Rock as a general of the Demon Lord, telling him she'll slaughter everyone in his army. Antic sees the monsters approaching, and she thinks about evacuating the citizens, but Malta tells her there's no need to go that far, since she has them on her side. She thinks they don't stand a chance against the Demon Lord's army, but she suddenly sees explosions, and Malta mentions that Ada will lead Dragonton to victory. Antic realizes that she's OP, and Ice Rock attacks her with his ice shards, but she manages to close the distance and cuts down his wolves. She mentions that everything's going just as Takuto predicted, and we learn that he told her about the battle system in Brave Questus, telling her that only a few monsters can attack her at the same time. But the battles in their strategy game are on a much larger scale, so their attacks could target entire armies, and he tells her she has the advantage when fighting large groups. Ice Rock tells her to join the Demon Lord since she's also evil, and notes that they plan to create a world for demons. But she explains that she isn't interested, since she knows how difficult it is to manage a nation, telling him he'll drown in paperwork if they conquer the world. But he doesn't understand what she means, so she thinks his character isn't fleshed out, since he's just meant to be defeated by the hero. He recalls that he has been defeated in the game countless times, so he tells her to be silent and starts attacking her, but she easily blocks his attacks. She asks him how it feels to exist just to be defeated, and tells him to attack her with his strongest move, so he unleashes his full power and uses his skill called glacial decapitation. She thinks it will never hit her, but she realizes that she can't move, and he manages to cut her shoulder. But he realizes that she's still alive, and she stabs him with her tentacles to finish him off, but she can't believe he was able to hit her. Her wound instantly regenerates, but she rants about his ultimate move, since it was impossible to avoid it. But she realizes that she was able to learn it, and she thinks it's OP since it's guaranteed to hit its target. She reports her success to Takuto, but she suddenly realizes that there are enemies in Minogra, and we see Flamen and his men gathered outside the forest. An elf tells Takuto about the invaders, but he reveals that he already knows about them, since he has the power to know everything that's happening in his domain. Isla tells the elf to return to his post, since they've already prepared for the invasion, and the twins wonder if everything will be okay. So she tells them not to worry, since she's there to protect them, but she wonders if the Demon Lord is a player like Takuto. But he thinks it doesn't matter, telling her to crush the enemies with her full power, and he notes that it's time to launch their counterattack. He mentions that Isla is their defense hero, and she'll be working with the elf warriors and brain eaters to protect Minogra. They also have her larvae on their side, which are intended for labor, but she notes that they can fight since her presence makes them stronger. Emil tells Takuto that she has evacuated the civilians, and he promises to join them later, while G tells him that he already has a rough estimate of the number of invaders. He reports that over 1,000 enemies have entered the accursed lands, and there are creatures that he's never seen before. So Takuto tells him to defend the area around their capital, while he deals with the monsters, and he realizes that it will be a tough battle. But he reveals that he already has a plan, and he gives Minogra's mana reserves to Isla, so that he can raise her level as much as possible. Her body overflows with energy, as he tells her to acquire the necessary skills to defeat the invaders, and she's glad that he trusts her with everything during this crisis. He thinks she's now strong enough to defeat a general of the Demon Lord, and tells her to show him what she can do, so she promises to live up to his expectations. He tells her to be careful of attacks with RPG mechanics, and the twins are worried about her, but she promises to return after she defeats the invaders. We see the invaders in the forest, as they wonder why they had to split away from Ice Rock, and one of them thinks their operation doesn't have the Demon Lord's permission. He believes that Flamen plans to betray the Demon Lord, and they suddenly see a scout, but they wonder why he looks strange, and larvae start coming out of his body. They attack the invaders, who struggle to defend themselves, so they think about retreating, but Isla appears above them and easily cuts them down. Flamen appears behind her and introduces himself as one of the Demon Lord's 4 generals, so she tells him his comrade was killed in Dragonton. But he doesn't care, and notes that he isn't surprised, since Ice Rock was the weakest among the 4 generals. He thinks he's strong enough to defeat Takuto, and tells her not to underestimate him as he unleashes his powers and prepares to clash with her. We see Takuto in his room, where he analyzes the situation, and he thinks Isla is stronger than Flamen, so it's only a matter of time before she defeats him. He knows that the larvae are also fighting to protect their lands, while G and his warriors are stationed around the capital, and the brain eaters are still on standby. Takuto thinks everything is going well, but the twins notice that he's restless, since he can sense that something's wrong. We return to Isla, as she dodges Flaмен's attacks, and she tries to cut him down, so he jumps away. But her larvae suddenly fall from a tree, and they completely cover his body, so he burns them all away. He mentions that she isn't the only one who has pawns, and he summons monsters to his side, as she notes that his skill is cheating, since it allows him to create minions at no cost. His minions charge in, so she plants her larvae into the ground, and they kill the monsters in an instant. He burns them before they can reach him, and dodges Isla's attacks, telling her she can't trust Takuto since he's hiding something from her. But she doesn't believe Flamen, who charges in with his burning fist, but she easily blocks his attack. He mentions that he hates her, since she has the choice to stay loyal to her king, and he asks her how it feels to be in her position. So she explains that it makes her happy, since she enjoys serving her master, and she asks him what it's like to be controlled by the Demon Lord. So he notes that it feels terrible, but he thinks he'll finally be free after he kills everyone in Minogra, and he creates a giant pillar of fire, which he uses to attack her. He manages to hit her, so he thinks the fight is over, but he realizes that she protected herself with a cocoon. She wonders if that's all he can do, so he continues to attack her, but she's able to dodge everything, and he runs out of mana. She manages to cut him, and prepares to finish him off, telling him he took Minogra too lightly. He realizes that he was just the Demon Lord's puppet, but he decides to play his part until the very end, and she cuts his body into pieces. Takuto tells her she did a great job, so she realizes that he watched the fight, and tells him she was able to level up by defeating Flamin. But there's suddenly a communication error, and she wonders what the twins are doing there, so they explain that they have no idea, since they were with Takuto just a moment ago. She thinks they're in danger, so she orders her larva to protect them, but we see Flamin with a smile on his face. The larva suddenly gets scared and run away, so Isla calls the Brain Eaters for help, but they don't respond. Isla flies away with the girls herself, but after flying for a while, she ends up back at Flamin's body. He starts laughing at her, so she tries to kill him again, but she's stopped by a barrier. Takuto gets a system message, telling him that it's an automatic barrier that protects key characters during an event. So Takuto remembers that in Brave Questus, Flamin triggers an event when he's defeated. The twins become worried, so Isla promises she'll protect them, but there's suddenly a strange power that starts to control her. She wonders what's going on, so Flamin notes that it's a scripted event, and the girls suddenly start walking towards him. They can't control their bodies, and Isla isn't able to stop them, as Flamin tells her that there's nothing she can do. She tries her best to break free from the power, but it's no use, so Flamin notes that none of them have a will of their own. He thinks they're all just pieces in a game, and he curses the Demon Lord for lying about setting him free. He refuses to let himself die without meaning, and he prepares to blow himself up, causing a massive explosion. In a flashback, we see Caria as she shows her sister a new spot she found to look at the kingdom. As the moon shines down, everything starts to glow, and Maria finds it beautiful. She remembers Takuto telling her that it represents love, so they decide to share it with Isla on the next full moon. We see that they survive the explosion, and they realize that Isla protected them. They call for Takuto to help them, but their communication is still blocked. Isla knows she doesn't have much time left, and they wonder if there's anything they can do, blaming themselves for being too weak, but she tells them they did nothing wrong. She suddenly takes out her own heart, and she tells them to eat it so they can survive, using her skill to transfer the rest of her power to them. Meanwhile, we see Ada defeating the barbarians, and she tells Malta he isn't needed, but he notes that he's just following Takuto's orders. She gets annoyed taking out the barbarians, but she suddenly feels what happened to Isla, and her tentacles go out of control. She manages to calm down, and we see that Takuto is also shocked about what happened, because the scripted event shouldn't have been possible in this world. We see Caria and Maria eating the heart, but there seems to be an error with their promotion to becoming heroes. Takuto finally gets through to Ada, and he tells her about the scripted death event. She realizes she should have reported what happened with Ice Rock, and she thinks about returning to Minogra so she can protect him, but he tells her to go after the twins instead, who are headed to the enemy base for revenge, but they can't afford to lose any more heroes. She worries about his safety against the RPG mechanics, thinking his safety is more important, but he still orders her to go after the girls. So she immediately heads off, but she remembers how Takuto was the best player of the game, so she needs to just believe in him and follow his orders. G and Emil report on the situation, and they suggest their next actions, but Takuto tells them only to act when he gives them an order, and they realize that he's acting differently. We see Caria as she approaches the barbarians, and the Wind General finds her bold for approaching on her own. Caria wonders why they need to suffer, thinking that the world is cruel, and all the barbarians suddenly start to feel pain. The Wind General wonders what she's doing to them, and she blasts her with her cursed wind, but it has no effect against Caria's divine protection. The General's hand starts to rot, and she falls to the ground, as it spreads across her entire body and turns her to dust. Meanwhile, Maria goes up against the other General, who blasts her with his arcane mechanisms, but they have no effect. The General prepares to fight with his mech, but Maria's ability suddenly makes it forget how to move. He orders his Earth mages to attack, but they've also forgotten how to fight, and Maria asks him if he believes in love. She notes that they need love since the world hates them, and as she bites down, she suddenly eats the mages. She takes a bite of the mech and starts eating everything around them, so the general becomes terrified, begging the demon lord to save him. Maria tells him to just forget that he's scared, and after he's forgotten everything, there will only be love that remains. But the system issues a new message, that the sisters have become a threat, because their hatred is going to destroy the world. We see the girls approaching the demon lord, who wonders how they defeated his army, so he puts up a dark barrier to protect himself, but it's instantly dispelled by Caria's power. The demon lord thinks they're a trial sent by God, so he transforms into his final form, mentioning how he's no longer restricted in this world, as he starts attacking with countless swords, but Maria makes the swords forget how to move, and Caria starts melting the ground under him. The girls rush at him, and as he tries to counterattack, Caria melts his arm. They both use their powers on him, but he refuses to lose, as he notes that if he can fulfill his pact with God, he will finally be free. Maria tells him that God doesn't exist, and they tell him that believing in something only leads to pain. The demon lord swears in the name of his God, and his wounds start to heal, but he's suddenly cut in half by a boy. The girls wonder who he is, and they get angry that he ruined their revenge, so the boy tries to calm them down. The girls decide to kill him, but Ada suddenly appears and freezes them using her new skill, and she's impressed that it could stop the girls in the middle of their action. She tells them that Takuto has ordered them to return, but they insist on killing the boy who got in their way. Ada gets annoyed at them, thinking their power has gone to their heads, so she prepares to stop them by force. The girls mention how Takuto told them they could do whatever they wanted, but they also remember how he told them to behave in a way that their mother would be proud of them, so they think about Isla, and they come back to their senses. The girls apologize to Ada, and the boy takes the chance to run away. Ada seems to have an idea who he is, but she decides to leave him since she thinks they can't deal with him at the moment. Takuto receives a report from Ada, and he's glad it's all over, but he realizes he was careless, thinking he needs to be more careful of mechanics from other games. We see the boy after he gets away, and he blames his god for telling him to rescue the twins. He's joined by his servant, who tells him God apologized for what happened, but he's still annoyed. There's a giant that appears behind him, but he instantly cuts it down, as we learn that he was also reincarnated into this world, and they set off to save the world. Meanwhile, we see Lena go up against Arikino for the 19th time, and she's determined to uncover her secret. We learn she has tried killing Arikino in all kinds of ways, even sealing her magic, but she comes back to life every time. Arikino is confident she will eventually win, and we see a dice that lands on 100. Arikino can't believe she landed a crit, and she thinks she has finally become the strongest after changing her character sheet 19 times. She praises the dice gods, and it seems her next target is Minogra. Meanwhile, Takuto thinks about how they lost Isla because of his arrogance, and as he becomes frustrated, he ends up smashing through the floor of his house. He's surprised by his strength, so he tests it again on a massive tree. He realizes he isn't just controlling things in a game, because he's also a unit in the world, and he can't believe he never realized it. After that, they have a meeting to discuss what happened, and Ada thinks they need to punish the twins, but Takuto tells them they did nothing wrong. He apologizes for his own carelessness, which shocks them all, and he promises to bring Isla back to life. Ada thinks it's not possible in their situation, but Takuto reminds her of the Ascension victory condition of his game, where their civilization ascends to a higher plane, and they will be able to restore everything. Ada thinks that the victory condition is too hard to reach, and everyone will turn against them when they realize it's what they're trying to do. But Takuto thinks they can just kill anyone who gets in their way, as he reveals his latest advancement in technology, and he tells them they will be able to conquer the world if they just follow his orders. After that, Takuto thinks about how modern weapons won't be enough on their own, so he needs to carefully manage his units. He decides to check up on everyone, and he sees that all the dark elves are gathered in one spot, so he decides to check it out. They all pay their respects to Isla, but the twins note that it's not a grave, since Takuto said he would revive her, but Malta and the others aren't sure they'll be able to keep up with his plans. The twins tell them they're acting like children, since they're so easily afraid, and they realize that they're right. She can't believe the girls have no hesitation, so he also vows to follow Takuto to the end, and all the elves decide to put their trust in him. After that, Takuto goes up to Isla's shrine, and as he looks down, he realizes he was about to make a mistake on the strategy he was choosing, since it was because of everyone that they could have a nation like this. The next day, Aina thinks about how she wasn't able to change Takuto's mind, but she decides to be loyal and follow him anyway. But when she goes to see him, she finds the twins comforting him as he apologizes for getting carried away and scaring everyone. They ask him what he really meant, so he tells them he won't let anyone who trusts in him suffer again, and they will work together to achieve the Ascension victory. They all promise to stay by his side and help him, and he's determined to show what he can do as the #1 player. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.